There are days when I sit down in the morning with every intention of getting something important done. And then somehow, an hour later, I've answered messages, I've checked email, I've looked at a notification, followed a link, responded to someone else's problem, and the thing I really needed to do is still sitting there, waiting. Maybe you know the feeling. The strange thing is, I can be busy that entire hour. I can even feel productive. But busy and focused are not the same thing. Welcome to Steady Notes. I'm Don Hornsby. This is a place for conversations about leadership, faith, and the things that challenge us in everyday life. And today I want to talk about something I've been thinking about quite a bit lately. Focus. More specifically, the discipline of deciding what actually deserves our attention. Because the urgent will always be loud. The important usually isn't. I learned something about that pretty early in my working life. When I was a young salesman, my job was fairly straightforward. I sold business advertising. And a good portion of my day involved sitting at a desk and making phone calls. They were cold calls. Now, there were plenty of other things going on in that office. Phones were ringing, people were walking in, and there were forms and little office responsibilities and requests from the office manager. And some of those things had to be done. That was simply the cost of doing business. But there was a basic reality underneath all of it. I was paid on commission. And if I didn't make the calls, I didn't make the sales. At some point, a colleague introduced me to a way of thinking about time that stayed with me. And the idea was simple. Almost everything demanding your attention can be placed into one of four categories. There are things that are important and urgent. There are things that are important but not urgent. There are things that are urgent but not particularly important. And there are things that are neither urgent nor particularly important. Now, what I discovered was that an enormous amount of life gets consumed by things that feel urgent. They make noise. They demand an answer. They flash. They ring. They buzz. Someone wants something. And because something is demanding our attention now, we begin to assume it deserves our attention now. But those are two very different things. Over the years, I've become increasingly convinced of something. The more attention we give to what is important but not yet urgent, the less power the merely urgent begins to have over us. Now, it doesn't disappear because there will always be interruptions, there will always be emergencies, there will always be things we simply have to deal with. But they begin to lose their grip. And candidly, I think that discipline is much harder today than when it was when I was sitting at that desk making those cold calls. Back then, a distraction was a ringing telephone, or a visitor walking through a door, or somebody else's problem suddenly becoming mine. But today, I carry the distraction around in my pocket. And so do you. The smartphone is an extraordinary tool. I love mine, candidly. But it's also very, very good at getting my attention. A notification appears, a message arrives, something vibrates, there's a headline, an email, a social media alert, and almost without thinking, we look. Some very smart people have spent a great deal of time learning how to make sure that we do. And I have to admit, I make it easier for them than I should. There are notifications on my phone I simply need to turn off. But that's not somebody else's fault. That's mine. But there's something deeper happening here too. We aren't simply using our devices for communication. Increasingly, we're letting them carry the details of life for us. And I've started thinking about this recently because I remembered something I used to love. Maps. Actual maps. You can hold them into your hands. They're tactile. They're real. Years ago, I planned a trip from Ohio to Florida. And I can remember sitting with the map and the atlases in my car, looking at them, and I studied the highways. I looked at the towns that we would pass. I figured out where the roads were connected. And I developed a kind of mental picture of the journey even before I even got started. But today, I type an address into an app, and a very pleasant voice tells me where to turn. Turn right in 500 feet. Stay in the left 2 lanes. Take the next exit. And if I miss one, no problem. It recalculates, and that's magnificent. I wouldn't give it up. But something has changed. I no longer have to carry much of that journey in my head. The device does it for me. And increasingly, that's true of our calendars, our phone numbers, our reminders, our appointments, our directions, our lists, even some of our memories. We've offloaded an astonishing amount of life into the little devices that are in our hands. And at the same time, that same device is continually asking for our attention. And so it can begin to feel as though we've lost the ability to focus. But there's encouraging research suggesting that perhaps we haven't lost that ability at all. We're simply trying to use it in an environment that is constantly interrupting us. Now, that's an important distinction. Because if our capacity for focus hasn't disappeared, then it can be practiced. It can be strengthened. We can build an environment that helps it return. And strangely enough, that takes me to something written almost 2,000 years ago, before anyone had a smartphone. Paul wrote these words to a small group of people living in the town of Philippi. Whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there's anything worthy of praise, think about these things. And then he says, what you have learned and received and heard and seen in me, practice these things. I love that. Think about these things and then practice these things. Now, Paul isn't telling them to pretend problems don't exist. He's not saying, hey, just ignore reality. He's telling them to be deliberate about what occupies their minds. Because what repeatedly receives our attention eventually begins to shape us. And what we think about affects what we notice. And what we notice affects the decisions that we make. And the decisions that we make eventually become the life that we're living. That's true spiritually, it's true emotionally, and it's true in leadership. So I've developed a very simple practice that helps me. I don't begin the day with a massive list of 15 things that all somehow look equally important, because they're not. Instead, I ask myself, what are the 3 big things today? just 3. And if today's workday ended and I can look back and say those 3 big things moved forward, then it was a very successful day. Not 15, not 10, 3. Now, that doesn't mean I won't answer an email. It doesn't mean I won't take a phone call. It doesn't mean something unexpected won't happen. Of course it will. That's life. But those 3 things become anchors, and they remind me what I decided mattered before the noise of the day started deciding for me. I like that distinction. Before the noise decides for me. Because if I don't choose where my attention goes, someone else will. Some notification will. Some request will. Some algorithm will. Some problem that arrived 10 minutes ago will suddenly become the organizing principle of my entire day. And leadership requires something better than that. I've had to relearn this myself over the past year. There has been transitions in my work, transitions in life, questions about what comes next. And as I think about this season, what sometimes I call my 4th quarter, I've become increasingly conscious that I don't want to spend the years ahead merely responding to whatever happens to be the loudest. There are things I still want to build. There are people I want to help. There's ideas that I want to pursue. There's work that I believe matters. At least it matters to me. And none of those things will happen accidentally. The discipline of focus doesn't stay learned. Every time the ground shifts beneath us, we have to learn it again. And maybe that's where you are right now. Maybe there are 10 things competing for your attention before breakfast. Maybe your phone starts talking to you before you really had a chance to think. And maybe you've reached the end of too many days exhausted from doing just things, but strangely uncertain about what you really are accomplishing. Try something tomorrow. Before the messages, before the notifications, before everybody else's priorities arrive and decide to take your attention away. Take a piece of paper and write down 3 things. Ask yourself, what is important today, even if it isn't screaming at me yet? 3 things. 1, 2, 3. And protect some time for them. Carve out the time for them. Because the urgent will always be loud, but it rarely deserves the volume that it gets. George Bernard Shaw once described life with an image I've always loved. He said he didn't want to think of life as a brief candle. He thought of it as a splendid torch that he had been given just for a moment, and he wanted to make it burn as brightly as possible before handing it on. That's a beautiful way to think about life, isn't it? And maybe focus, in the end, is simply deciding where we will let that torch burn. We only have so much time. We only have so much energy. We only have so much attention to give. And we can't give it fully to everything. And trying to do so usually means giving it fully to nothing. So choose the important things. Think on those things. Practice those things. Write down your big 3. And when the noise starts, remember what you decided mattered. The urgent will always be loud. Let the important be louder. I'm Don Hornsby, and this has been Steady Notes. Until next time, stay steady.